What's up, y'all? I am Caroline Fenton, and there has been a lot going on in the world of the WNBA this past week. So let's start with the bad, and then we will get into the good. Starting with the news that came out on Friday that Paige Bueckers is out for the next 2 weeks in concussion protocol following the Dallas Wings loss to the Chicago Sky on Thursday. The team announced on Friday that there will be no Paige for the next 2 weeks. Now, Paige Bueckers was coming off of her best game as a player in the WNBA and a win over the Connecticut Sun, 109-87. Paige played 35 minutes, had 21 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals. And it finally felt like this rookie, the number one overall pick, was starting to gel with her team. So, with being out for the next 2 weeks, what does that mean for Paige's development as a player at this level? And what does this mean for the Dallas Wings as they all try and figure these new pieces out? Now, the WNBA will be without two of its brightest young stars and back to back number one overall picks, as Paige Bueckers is out for 2 weeks in concussion protocol and Caitlin Clark remains sidelined with a quad injury. Now, Caitlin Clark out for at least 2 weeks herself. It would give the Fever potentially an opportunity to find ways to score and to win without their superstar. But since then, the Fever have been struggling without CC. Now, Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Colson, two offseason additions for the Indiana Fever, they left with injuries on Friday. Sophie Cunningham is dealing with a leg injury. Sydney Colson has been dealing with an ankle injury herself. And the Fever have suffered 3 straight losses as of Monday afternoon, including a loss to the previously winless Connecticut Sun. Now, the injuries continue to pile up for the Indiana Fever, and they can't find a way to win without Caitlin Clark. How far set back will they be, and how much damage will they do in the standings, and how much will they have to overcome that over the last couple of weeks and months of the season? Do we feel any differently about the Indiana Fever now that they have struggled with injuries than we did maybe a couple of weeks ago? That opens up opportunities for Lexi Hole, who could get some more minutes, and also Dewana Bonner, the number 3 leading scorer in the history of the WNBA. She is a veteran. She is a legend of the game, but she hasn't seen a whole lot of minutes over the last couple of weeks. So what does her role look like now that the Fever will be without Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson, and Caitlin Clark, at least for now, as we know, in the short term? Let's get to the good, because there's been a whole lot of good in the WNBA. There are 2 remaining undefeated teams, the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty. So the question is, who's had a more impressive undefeated 7-0 start, the Lynx or the Liberty? Let's look at the Liberty, because they have been draining threes at an unprecedented clip against the Sun this past weekend. They tied their previous record for the most 3-pointers made in a single game in WNBA history with 19 3-pointers made in an absolute blowout over the Connecticut side, 100-52. They were 19 of 32 from 3 points. Sabrina Ionescu, 4 for 6. Natasha Cloud, 2 for 2 from the 3-point line. Jonquel Jones, 3 for 4 herself. The New York Liberty lead the WNBA in points and field goal percentages. They also have wins over the Las Vegas Aces and the Indiana Fever, 2 of the hottest teams in the W, and that was a Fever team that did have Caitlin Clark playing for it. Now let's move on to the Minnesota Lynx, another undefeated team, a 7-0 start for Minnesota, their best start to the season since 2017. And the Minnesota Lynx are coming into this season coming for revenge. They're bitter, they're angry, and they're motivated with how last season ended. And as their head coach, Cheryl Reeve, said, they are not satisfied even with a 7-0 start. They have much larger aspirations for this season. Nafisa Collier is one of the favorites to win league MVP. And we know, after maybe feeling snubbed last year by Asia Wilson when winning league MVP, that Nafisa Collier not only has personal goals, but team goals as well. So the Lynx and Liberty both undefeated to start this season. A couple of upcoming matchups to keep an eye on this week in the WNBA. Now, while the Lynx and the Liberty, the two lone undefeated teams, don't face each other until July 30th, they both have a pair of matchups this week. So we'll keep an eye on them as they continue their path to a championship. On Saturday, the Indiana Fever head to the Chicago Sky. And while Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese's respective teams are always appointment watching, no Caitlin Clark for the Fever as they head to Chicago this week, but still always a great matchup as those two teams face each other. So keep it here with Yahoo Sports as you will get immediate reaction and weekly recaps every week here on Yahoo Sports.